Good morning, my YouTube guys and gals. Thank you so much for tuning into my channel. My name is Beauty Fat, and today we're going to talk about resumes. Okay, so before we get started, I want to talk about a few things because I am really excited about the new subscribers that have joined my channel. First, shout out to everybody that has been subscribed to my channel that keeps coming back. I really appreciate you coming and watching my videos and showing me support and dropping me comments. But to my new subscribers, thank you so much for tuning in and watching my videos and liking my videos. I want to give a big shout out to Disastrous Beauty for that. She posted a video and did a ball cap method and used me as a reference as to why she did that ball cap method, and I know that's where a lot of my new subscribers came from. So welcome new subscribers, and thank you so much Disastrous Beauty for that huge shout out. Love you, girl. Speaking of some of these gurus, for anybody that is new to YouTube like I am, let me be the first to tell you, do not be afraid to reach out to a lot of the YouTubers that have been doing YouTube. No matter how big or small their audience is, if they are putting out constant content and getting a lot of feedback, then they are doing something. They have learned something that you and I need to learn. And I have reached out to Disastrous Beauty, I Am Kiva, Jackie Naturals, just to name a few of them. Even some of the new people I've subscribed to, I will reach out to them and ask them questions, and they have no problem responding and getting back to me and telling me the information that I need to know, or refer me somewhere if they don't have the information themselves. And it has really been a big help to me. I'm not very cell phone savvy, computer savvy, so all of this is new to me. I'm just now getting on social media and trying to post things and post pictures and all of this stuff, and it's kind of overwhelming, and I don't really know a lot of things to do. I don't know what to look for, so reaching out to YouTubers who are already doing it has really been a big help to me. So I just wanted to tell you guys, don't be afraid. If you're a YouTuber like me, in your 40s, starting late, and really don't know what to do, to just stop by and ask somebody. And I'm gonna tell you, I reach out to Disastrous Beauty via email. She has always responded. I know she has a lot of emails to go through, so for her to respond back to me, it means a lot. And that's with everybody. Everybody that I have reached out to ask questions, they have always gotten back to me, so don't be afraid to do that. Now, if you see me looking down, it's because I've been taking notes on the things that I want to hint on. So I'll be looking down, reading my notes, and trying to stay on task so this video doesn't go too long, okay? So now to talk about these resumes. Let's start with why having a resume is important. Okay, a lot of people still aren't using resumes who are working in the corporate world. They are not submitting cover letters. They are just applying and reapplying and showing up at the interview empty-handed, wondering why somebody else got chosen the job, even if they're less qualified than you are. And there can be several reasons. I really don't want to get into all of that. I want to just stick to why resume writing is important. Now, I used to be a supervisor for a home care company, and at that company, the supervisors were responsible for hiring their own aides, looking through the applications and interviewing their own aides to service their particular clients. And I just got to tell you, sometimes I was so floored by what somebody gave to me as a resume, and you'd be surprised, at least 80% of people had no resume, if not 90. A lot of them had no resume, had no credentials, didn't even really know why they were coming to the job other than they needed work. And I get that. A lot of people, look, we need a job. If you can tell me what I need to do to get the job, then I'll do the job. But that's the reason why people don't keep jobs. That's the reason why companies end up having low quality, is because people really just need a job. But if you take the time and fill out a resume, it lets the employer know that you are trying to take some responsibility for what it is that you need to do to get employed with the company. And it says you know what your credentials are and what you have to bring to the table. So anyway, it's things like that that got me to helping people create professional resumes. At least at the time, what I knew to be a professional resume, what we were looking for in human resources as regards to what type of skills, qualifications, and knowledge an employee or potential employee had. Okay, so at that time, I was writing those resumes for free. I was creating resumes for people for free, where they were going to come work for my company or go somewhere else and work for a company. And really, there were so many people that applied for the job where I was, and they were well overqualified, but their resume was so piss poor, nobody was gonna know that they had that many qualifications, those type of skills, and those type of knowledge. So I would take it upon myself and sit that aide down, get her information, create a resume, send it to her, and 9 times out of 10, they got a job somewhere else or got the job with us, because then we could see their qualifications. Prosper from. So I started researching professional resume writing. I started going on YouTube, looking at other professional resume writers. I started printing out things that would tell you what all a resume should have, the things that resume should not have. I went and started educating myself on the type of words that you should use on a resume as opposed to words that we usually use on resumes, etc., etc., etc. I just started trying to perfect my craft. And some of the things I was already doing, there are a lot of things that I weren't doing. I also had to learn that every resume doesn't have to be black and white. There are some employers that really do like colorful, creative resumes, and then there are other employers that prefer to have a plain black and white resume with a regular outline. They're not looking for all of that creativity. And so I learned how to assess what type of resumes different type of employers were looking for. So for those of us that are working in corporate America and want to move up that corporate ladder, having a resume is very, very important. What is a resume? A resume is a brief account or summary of a person's education, qualifications, previous experience, typically sent with an application. Sometimes having a resume is enough, and sometimes it isn't. I have interviewed in home care and only just needed to know what jobs you've had in the past. Sometimes having those jobs explain what you've done in detail really matters, and for some employers it don't. They just want to know where you worked, how long you worked there, what your position was, and they can tell on their own whether or not you qualify for their position. Then there are other employers that really need to know everything you did on every job, and that's the difference between submitting a resume and submitting a resume portfolio. Now, a resume portfolio showcases who you are, your hobbies, your creativity, explains positions in detail. It lets the employer into who you are personally as well as professionally. Now, there are 2 types of resume portfolios. A resume portfolio can be a resume that simply completely details out everything you did when you went to school, whether it was high school, college, graduate college, or what have you. It doesn't just list what degree or diploma or certification you earned. It lists out what classes that you took, what your grade point average was, etc., whether or not you even participated in an elective or a sport while you were in school. The same way with a job. It lists out not just the title, the position, the type of company, the state that it was in, and the time that you were there. It lists out everything that you learned while you were there, the duties that you had, and it details and highlights whether or not you received awards while you were there, promotions, and etc. Or there's the portfolio that you can take with you on an interview when you get ready to interview for a job. Okay, so here, whenever I can get it to focus in, here is an example of a resume portfolio that you can take with you to an interview. This first page is forgive my lighting, I'm so sorry, it's bringing such a bad glare. But this first page is an introductory page. It just gives the employer an inside look on what it is that you have to offer, like a summary. It gives a summary of what the employer is about to learn about you. Now, the way that I use an introductory page, usually when the employer during an interview gets to the point of saying, tell me something about yourself, I take this out I take this out and I hand it to the employer, and then I briefly go over the summary myself in detail. This second page is a cover letter. I generally will already have taken out the cover letter and the resume and handed it to the employer when I first got in the interview. Your cover letter can vary because in a cover letter, you want to let the employer know that you're interested in the job, highlight a few things of where you've been, where you are, and what you plan to do, and let them know whatever contact information you have as to how they can reach you. My resume always has a title page. It is not necessary, but I'm a creative person, so I always go a little bit above and beyond when I'm turning in a resume. My resume has my profile of all of the things that I have done. It tells my education. It gives some work experience. And as you can see, I briefly list out the things that I had to do on each job. I do not go into detail. It has my contact information, a little list of hobbies, and then some skills that I am proud of. Now here is a resume that details every single thing that I have done. So on my simple resume, it just gives a few highlights, but on a resume portfolio, it lists the things that you have done out in detail. And sometimes I can make a resume longer than one page, which is okay if you are creating a resume portfolio. But again, I suggest these type of resumes are for jobs such as if you're a lawyer or an operations manager, some type of leadership position. Okay. Now the next page is a list of all of my references. Okay, so I list out my references, and then underneath each reference I have some type of positive quote. This quote I got from Cardi B. However, hers says fall 10 times. Fall. She's been down 9 times, but she got up 10. I put fall 10 times, get up 11. And there's something in every single one of these. This one says do one thing every day that you think you can't. I have another one that says don't be afraid to give up good for great. Just several positive quotes that I like to keep all around me, and it's just something to add. Sorry, this isn't focusing. Something to add to my resume for employers to see that I do have a lot of positivity surrounding me. Okay. I also include in a portfolio a testimonial from someone or a letter of recommendation. I hand these to the employer as well. During an interview, not at the beginning, but at the end of the interview, so that they have something else to consider when they get ready to consider your application. Now, when it comes to things such as your high school diploma or GED, as you can see, I had a GED, certifications, diploma. This is not a real college diploma. As you can see, I created this just for the purpose of this video. I don't have any degrees, so I couldn't provide a real example of one. But if you had a college degree, it also needs to go in your portfolio along with your certifications, high school diploma, or general education diploma. That way, if you're asked for it in the interview, you can simply pull it out, show it to the employer, let them make a copy if they need to, and then put it back in your portfolio. Now, just about every single interview I have ever been to has asked me what it is that I like to do in my leisure time or in my personal life. So at this point, I would take this out and hand it to the employer, so they have a good idea of the things that I like to do. And then I just simply tell them I love to travel. Excuse me. I love water. I like going to the beach. I love food. My favorite food is Mexican, and I love to write. I am working on becoming an author. So things like this give employers the notion that you are really serious about a position. You come prepared. You're very organized. I mean, these are just helpful tools to have when you're interviewing for a job. If you're interviewing for an acting job, you should submit, or a modeling job, you should submit several photos of yourself. You would want to have at least 10 photos of different hairstyles, different costumes, so that you can hand those pictures over to the employer during your interview. And then this is what is called a salary negotiation letter. The reason for this type of letter is if you get offered a position and you know that your qualifications make you a very competitive candidate for a job, and they offer you a job, but it's just not the amount of money that you were expecting to receive, you can negotiate your compensation. You have the right to do that, especially if you know you're qualified for more pay. I would submit a salary negotiation letter. It has worked for me twice before in the past, and I really appreciated taking the time to do that because I got more money. You can also submit employment inquiry letters. If you've applied for a job and haven't heard from anyone, send find out who the hiring manager is or who the recruiter is, and send them a letter. Let them know, hey, I've applied for a job and I haven't heard from anyone, and I'd like to know if you're still hiring for the position or what have you. You can do a very detailed inquiry letter, or you can do a very simple one. Okay, if you don't know who the hiring manager is, you can always use words like hiring manager or recruiter or human resources. But I will tell you, it is better if you know a person's name. It says that you have taken the time to do your research on getting this job. Okay, now there are all different types of resumes to submit. I use Word resume templates a lot. Matter of fact, 95% of the resumes that I create for people are using Word templates. The thing about using a template is the template is not going to provide you the wordage that you need to put on a resume. That's when it becomes important on hiring a resume writer. Resume writers spend their time looking up the type of verbiage, wordage, whatever that needs to be said on a resume that attracts an employer's attention. So if you are already creative with words, but you just are not creative with creating a resume outline, then that is another reason to contact a professional resume writer. So everybody has their reasons for contacting a professional resume writer, and I know resume writers charge anywhere from $50 to $300 per resume, depending on what it is that you are looking for in a resume and what your credentials are. I happen to do resumes anywhere from $10 to $40, depending on whether or not you want a simple resume or if you want a whole entire portfolio. But that brings me to my the next thing that I think people should take with them to interviews. And let me tell you, if you think an interviewer does not want you walking in with papers in your hand or some type of portfolio in your hand, you are wrong. They look for responsible, organized, and focused people who really take the time to do whatever it is they can to obtain a job position. Having a resume portfolio is one thing, but having a copy of all of your experiences, knowledges, and skills is a whole other thing. And that's what I'm going to explain now, how you can use this along with your resume portfolio to be fully prepared in an interview with an employer. This is just a regular 1-inch binder. It's an old binder. When I say old, it's really old. This is an old binder that I just hold things in that I have collected over the years as I've been employed in different places. The first thing it has is my certificates. I have been a security officer. I've been a home care supervisor. I mean, I have done a lot of things and I've held a lot of hats. These are not all the certifications that I have. These are just a few for the purpose of this video. And I have each section labeled as what they are. So these are certificates. If an employer wants to know what some of your accomplishments were on a job, instead of having to try to brainstorm and get it all mixed up, you can just simply open your binder and let them know. I got awarded for being the best supervisor of the month, or keeping my client staffed, or whatever your awards are. If you're in finance, it could be the top salesman of the month and things of that nature. And these certifications are things you have to get certified in on a job. This was management training. This was another management training. Oh, these are the different years that I had to take the management training course. This is drive safety training. Employers want to know what type of training you have. You never know what training you had that might stand out to an employer that is interviewing you. I also print out my performance evaluations. If you don't think that's important to some employers, think again. They want to know, just because you're presenting yourself to a job and you've been on a job, to an employer and you've been on a job 10 years, it doesn't mean that you have done a good job while you were there. Having a performance evaluation lets an employer know just how good you do on the job, whether you just meet the requirements of the job or if you potentially exceed the requirements on a job. So having something like that is something that employers would be impressed by. It lets them know exactly what you're doing on the job and whether or not you are great at performing your job skills. I also keep my offer letters. A lot of people don't do that, but I do. Every job that I have always been promoted to a higher position, not just once, but twice, depending on how long I was there. And I keep every single employment offer letter that they give to me, and I use these as a reference to what I should be looking for when I get on another job. If this employer was willing to pay me, look, this is office reimbursement. This is telling how much I'll make as a contractor for this company. Listen, sometimes you get offered jobs and you really don't know. You can't think of what to ask for right up front. Going back, looking at your job offer letters lets you know, hey, I was worth this much to this company, then I should be worth this much to you guys. Okay, and then I have testimonials. There are times where people have actually sent me letters and sent me cards telling me thank you for something that I have done for them. You know, when an employer gets to that question in an interview and says, tell me something great you have done, something that somebody has really appreciated. You have this little handy dandy set of testimonials that you can pull out right there in the interview and say, well, I have been thanked for little things that I have done for people. I have been thanked for great things that I have done for people. And then you have the opportunity to explain to them what it was that you did that made you so great to that family or that particular person or whatever the case may be. Now, I also keep in this folder a list of every single job that I have ever had. I started doing that a few years ago because I have been sitting in interviews and somebody asked me, well, what were you doing 10 years ago today? And I'm thinking, hell, I don't know. You know what I mean? So I started keeping a list of every single job I have owned. My very first job was working at the Waffle House here in Athens in 1994. And look how thick well, you probably can't tell, but I have held a lot of jobs. And I'm still listing every single job that I have down to where I currently am, which is with Piedmont, and I've been there since November 2016. So it is important to know all of your jobs because you can't list all your jobs on a resume. So I think it's very important to keep a list of all the jobs that you have held. That way, if you get in an interview, an employer wants to know more job positions that you've held that are not listed on your resume, then you could just pull this handy dandy gadget out right here and give them more of the job positions that you have held. Lastly, what I have in my little book of employment are my background checks. There are several companies I've worked for that have asked me for background checks, and I keep them. You never know when you're going to get to an interview and they ask you when's the last time you had a background check done. And what you could do is pull out your little information in your handy dandy employment book. So I know that seems like a lot of information for some of you, but for somebody like me who have been doing this for years, whatever that comes in my life currently, I just added to the information that I already have. So if you don't already have an employment book or a resume portfolio, then you can start with where you are now and then build as time goes by. Or you can hire someone like me, a resume writer, and have them to ask you of the things that they need to start creating one for you. It's just up to you what lengths you're willing to go through to get the job that you are trying to get, or to move up the corporate ladder if that is something that you want to do. Like I said, you can keep a job, or you can turn your job into a career, or you can keep a job and then start building on a career like I'm doing. It is really up to you. There's no reason to stand still. But I will say this, if where you are in life and what you are doing is making you happy and you have no need for anything else, then you are already successful. You are already where a lot of us are trying to be. Just because you don't make a whole lot of money doesn't mean you're not successful. Just because you don't work doesn't mean you're not successful. I know plenty of homemakers who have just raised their children, held their house together, been good wives to their husbands or wives or whatever you're married to, and that makes them successful. So I will say it again. Having employment, having a career, those things do not make you successful. At the end of the day, if you are happy with where you are, if you are happy with what you're doing, if what you're doing brings you satisfaction, if what you are doing is your legacy, then you have already reached your goal, my dear. You have no reason to pursue anything else except for perfecting whatever it is that you're doing on a daily basis. Alright, so that's it for today's video. Hopefully I've said something that can be of help to you or to someone else. If you liked my video, please give me a thumbs up. If you didn't, I understand, give me a thumbs down. But please don't forget to drop a comment, and always, always hit that subscription button. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you next time.